My name is Caitlin Clark, and before the world started chanting my name, before the cameras followed every step I took, I was just a kid in a small Iowa gym trying to make a ball go through a hoop. People see the records now, the logo threes, the sold-out arenas, the millions of viewers tuning in just to watch me play, but none of that started big. It started quietly, with a little girl who dribbled until her fingers hurt and shot until her arms felt like they were on fire. I wasn't born special. I became this because I refused to be anything else. I remember nights when everyone in the house was asleep and I'd sneak into the basement just to get more shots up, more repetitions, more chances to get better. My dad would find me sometimes sweating on the concrete floor, and instead of telling me to go to bed, he'd rebound for me. He knew. He knew that for me, basketball wasn't a hobby, it was oxygen. Growing up, I didn't have girls to compete with who played at my level, so I played with the boys. And believe me, they didn't go easy on me. They pushed me, shoved me, blocked every shot, talked trash in ways that would shock people now. But that's exactly what I needed. I learned early that nobody was going to hand me respect. I had to earn it, shot by shot. I still remember the first time I hit a deep three over a guy who was older, taller, stronger. He turned around and looked at me like he'd just seen something impossible, and I thought, good, get used to it. But the truth is, I wasn't confident back then. Not really. Every time I missed a shot, it felt like proof that maybe everyone was right, maybe I was dreaming too big, maybe girls weren't supposed to play like this. But then something inside me would burn this feeling in my chest that said, no, do it again, do it better. And every time I listened to that voice, I got a little stronger, a little braver, a little more like the player I'd someday become. As I got older, people started to notice my game, but they didn't understand it. They didn't understand why I shot from the logo, why I played with so much fire, why I took risks that most players were scared to take. Coaches told me to slow down, to be safer, to play the right way, but what they didn't realize was that this was my right way. I wasn't trying to fit into a system. I was trying to break every system I saw. Still, the pressure grew. Every tournament felt like a test. Every game felt like an evaluation. People would whisper in the stands, she's good, but she's too bold, or she'll never make it playing like that. I heard everything, even when I pretended not to. High school is where everything intensified. Suddenly there were expectations, real ones. Scouts started showing up. Journalists wanted interviews. Cameras followed me down hallways like I was supposed to already know how to be famous. But inside, I was still just a kid trying to figure out who I was becoming. And then came the nights that broke me and built me at the same time. Nights where I missed game winners. Nights where I cried in the locker room because I felt like I had let everyone down. Nights where I wondered if maybe the pressure was finally too much. But every time I thought about quitting, I would see one picture in my mind. The little girl in the basement, shooting at a taped square on the wall, dreaming of something impossible. I couldn't quit on her. I owed her everything. So even when the world felt heavy, I kept going. I kept practicing. I kept believing that my story wasn't meant to be small. It wasn't meant to end in fear. It was meant to rise. College changed everything for me. Suddenly the spotlight wasn't just bright, it was blinding. Every arena I stepped into felt bigger than the last. Every game felt like a battle with millions watching, judging, expecting. People think pressure is something you get used to, but they're wrong. Pressure isn't a friend. It's a weight that sits on your shoulders every single day, reminding you that one mistake can rewrite your whole story. But that weight also fuels you. It sharpened me. It made me walk onto the court with a different kind of fire, the kind that said, watch what happens next. At Iowa, I found a place where my wild, fearless style wasn't just tolerated, it was celebrated. The fans embraced me like family. They didn't just watch me play, they lived every moment with me. They cheered the deep threes, the bold passes, the nights I couldn't miss, and on the nights I struggled, they stayed with me. But even with all that love, there were moments behind the scenes people never saw. There were nights I'd sit alone in the locker room, staring at my shoes, wondering if the hype was becoming bigger than me, wondering if I could really carry the weight of an entire program, an entire state, an entire generation of young girls who suddenly believed they could shoot from anywhere simply because I did. And then came the expectations that felt impossible. Break this record, carry your team, be perfect every night. But perfection doesn't exist. What does exist is heart. And heart is the only reason I survived those years. Every game, every cheer, every doubt, every setback, my heart pulled me through. I wasn't performing for applause. I was fighting for every kid who had ever been told their dreams were too unrealistic, too loud, too big. I knew if I quit, they would too. And that was something I couldn't allow. The world started paying attention when the records fell. People saw the points, the highlights, the logo threes that made the internet explode. But nobody saw what it took to make those moments real. Nobody saw the mornings where I couldn't feel my legs from the day before, or the nights where I lay awake replaying every miss in my mind. Success is loud, but the grind is silent. And my grind was louder inside me than any arena I ever stepped into. Every time I walked onto the court, I knew eyes were on me, coaches, critics, fans, people waiting for me to fail just so they could say the hype wasn't real. But what they didn't understand was that I had already lived through harder things than their opinions. Pressure doesn't scare me. Expectations don't scare me. What scares me is playing small, holding back, or letting fear make my decisions. I refuse to let that happen. So when crowds started chanting my name, I didn't play to entertain them. I played to honor every hour, every sacrifice, every moment that brought me there. But with the spotlight came something darker. The hate, the criticism, the constant arguments about whether I deserved the attention. Some said I was overhyped. Some said I wasn't physical enough. Some said I wouldn't survive the next level. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't hear it. It was impossible not to. But instead of letting it break me, I used it. Every negative comment became fuel. Every doubt became a reason to push harder. People think confidence means never being afraid, but the truth is, confidence is choosing to keep going, even when the fear screams louder than your own heartbeat. And then came the moment I'll never forget, the realization that this wasn't just about me anymore. Girls across the country were copying my moves. Kids were drawing my number on their shirts. Parents were telling me their daughters picked up a basketball because they saw me believe in myself. That's when I understood my journey stopped being just my journey. It became a responsibility, a promise. I couldn't slow down now. I had too many people running behind me, hoping I'd show them the way forward. Draft night felt like my entire life collapsing into one single moment. I had dreamed of that stage since I was a little girl, shooting at a tape square on the basement wall, but standing there with cameras everywhere and millions watching, it didn't feel like a dream anymore. It felt real, heavy, like everything I had ever worked for was being measured in a single breath. And when my name was called, I felt this rush, this mix of pride and fear, because I knew life would never be the same after that moment. I smiled for the cameras, but inside, I was asking myself the same question over and over. Am I ready for this? Am I really ready for what comes next? The truth is, nothing prepares you for the WNBA. Nothing. Not college, not pressure, not success, not critics. The women in that league are strong in ways the world doesn't understand. They play with purpose, with edge, with scars. When I got there, I wasn't the star anymore. I was the rookie, the one everyone wanted to test, the one every veteran wanted to challenge. And they didn't hold back. The hits were harder. The pace was faster. The expectations were higher. But you know what? I loved it. I loved every second of it, because this is what I had fought for, this level, this stage, these battles. But there were moments that shook me, moments I didn't expect, hard fouls that left me on the floor longer than I wanted to admit, nights where I walked off the court frustrated, bruised, questioning if I was really as ready as people said I was. The spotlight that once felt exciting suddenly felt like a weight pressing on my chest. People talked about every step I took, every shot I missed, every expression on my face. It felt like the world was waiting for me to slip, but I reminded myself, you didn't come this far to be scared now. You didn't survive every doubt and every fear just to break here. And then something shifted. I realized that every challenge, every hit, every doubt thrown at me was shaping me into the player I needed to become. I wasn't supposed to dominate right away. I was supposed to learn, to grow, to evolve. And even in the tough moments, I held on to one truth. Greatness isn't built in comfort, it's built in chaos. and I've lived through enough chaos to know I can make it through anything. There's something people don't understand about being the most talked about rookie in the world. Every mistake feels louder than every success. One missed shot goes viral, one bad game becomes a headline, one frustrated look turns into a debate. And when you're young, when you're still figuring out who you are in a league full of giants, that noise can feel endless. Some nights I'd get back to my apartment and just sit there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how the world could love you at noon and question your entire existence by midnight. That kind of pressure is something you can't prepare for, you just learn how to breathe in it. But even with all that chaos, there were moments that reminded me why I'm here. Kids waiting outside arenas, holding signs with my name on them. Families traveling across the country just to watch me play. Messages from young girls saying they picked up a basketball because of me. Those moments mattered more than any highlight, any statistic, any record. They reminded me that what I do isn't just about points, it's about impact. And impact doesn't fade when you have a bad shooting night. It grows every time someone believes they can be more because they saw you try. Still, the league tested me in ways I didn't expect. The physicality, the speed, the way defenders hit me like they were trying to send a message. Sometimes it felt personal, but maybe it needed to be. Maybe the WNBA was showing me that if I wanted to stand at the top, I had to climb through storms nobody warned me about. I got up after every hit. Even when my body wanted to stay down, I wiped off the sweat, the frustration, the doubt, and I reminded myself, this is the cost of greatness. You don't get to rewrite the game without bleeding for it. And somewhere in the middle of all that, somewhere between the bruises, the pressure, the cheers, and the criticism, I felt myself changing. I felt myself growing tougher, sharper, smarter, not just as a player, but as a person. The league wasn't breaking me. It was building me. And the more they tested me, the more I realized something I always knew deep down. I'm not here to survive this. I'm here to shape it, to push it, to redefine it. And no amount of pressure will ever stop me from becoming the player I know I'm meant to be. There came a point in my rookie season when I finally understood the true cost of being a symbol. People don't realize it, but the moment you become someone kids look up to, you stop playing for yourself. You start playing for every little girl who sits in the stands with your jersey on, waiting for one moment, one shot, one pass, one smile to change the way she sees her own future. And that responsibility is heavier than any defender in the league. Some nights after a rough game, I'd scroll through messages that said I was overhyped, overvalued, overrated. And right underneath, a message from a young fan saying, "Caitlin, you make me believe I can do anything." And in that contrast, in that chaos, I found my purpose all over again. But with purpose comes sacrifice. People see the fame, the cameras, the highlights, but they don't see the parts I lose along the way, the nights I miss with my family, the friendships that fade because the schedule never slows down, the loneliness that creeps in after the noise stops. Sometimes it feels like everyone wants a piece of you, your talent, your story, your time, your energy, and you start wondering how much of yourself you'll have left when you finally reach the top. But here's the thing. I chose this. I chose to chase something bigger than comfort, bigger than fear, bigger than doubt, and every sacrifice becomes worth it when I step onto that court and feel that fire inside me ignite again. Still, the world keeps counting your points, your mistakes, your emotions, your reactions. Every move becomes a debate. Every expression becomes a headline. But the older I get in this league, the more I realize something powerful. I don't owe the world perfection. I owe myself honesty. I owe the game my passion. I owe the dream my effort. And I owe every girl watching the truth that greatness isn't clean or easy or glamorous. It's messy. It's painful. It's full of moments where you question everything. But it's also beautiful in a way nothing else is. Because when you keep going through all of it, you don't just become a better player. You become unbreakable. There's a moment every athlete faces, a moment where you stop chasing approval and start chasing purpose. For me, that moment came when I realized the world wasn't just watching how I played, they were watching how I stood back up. Every hard foul, every doubt thrown at me, every headline questioning who I am, it all became part of the story I'm writing. Not a story of perfection, but a story of resilience. A story of someone who refused to shrink just because the pressure got louder. And Somewhere along the way, I stopped asking, am I ready for this? And started saying, I was built for this. People think my journey is about basketball, and yes, the game is my heartbeat, but it's bigger than that now. It's about the kids who wait after games with tears in their eyes because they finally saw someone play the way they dreamed to play. It's about the families who drive for hours just to watch me shoot a single three. It's about the little girl inside me who never stopped believing that impossible things were meant to be attempted. And it's about proving every single day that the world will always try to define you, but only you get to decide who you become. I know I haven't reached my peak yet. I know there's still so much more to do, more records to chase, more barriers to break, more moments to create. And when I think about the future, I don't feel fear anymore. I feel hungry. I feel ready. I feel like everything I've survived has only sharpened the edges of the person I'm becoming. So to everyone who's watched me grow, stumble, rise, fall, and fight my way back, thank you. You're part of my story too. My name is Caitlin Clark, and I'm just getting started.